Well, hello. My name is Mr. Murphy, and I am going to take a few minutes to talk a little bit about myself and what this class will look like, because I know there's a lot of questions out there, and I want to do my best to be able to ease some of your anxieties you might have and hopefully answer some of those questions. But you have to remember, too, that I may not have all the answers quite yet. And even what I share with you might even change before or even during the school year. So first off, again, my name is Mr. Murphy, and I currently teach two different classes. The classes I teach this year are going to be FST, which stands for Functions, Statistics, and Trigonometry. And the other course I teach is Algebra 2. This here is a picture of my family. No, we did not get to go to Glacier National Park this year. This is actually taken from a family road trip I took last year. This year, as most of you guys are familiar with, we really didn't do a whole lot, but at least we get a nice little backdrop in this picture. That is my wife. My wife and I have been married now for 19 years, so this next year we'll be celebrating our 20th anniversary. And then we have our oldest daughter is Abigail, and then Eliana, Lydia, and Briella. And yes, I have 4 girls, and I consider myself very lucky to have them. A little bit more about myself. This is my 23rd year of teaching. It's actually my 11th year of being at the high school. I have my master's degree in curriculum and instruction, and I've also got a specialist degree in technology and education, which has served me well during these interesting times. Now, let's talk about this course. Okay, so students in Algebra 2 are going to need a few things. Whether they're online or hybrid, I would really recommend having all of these items. The first of which is a notebook. Now, Algebra 2, the entire curriculum, the book, the homework, the quizzes, the tests, everything is going to be online. Now, some students think that, oh, well, if math is online, I just do all my work online. That is not the case. Students need to understand that they should still have a notebook. They're going to need that notebook for taking notes, for doing the homework assignments. Okay, work can't just be done on screen. When they submit their answers, they're just submitting an answer. They're not submitting their work. They're going to do their work on a separate sheet of paper. So they need to have a notebook still for this class. Now, whether it's a traditional college line book notebook or a graphing notebook, it doesn't matter. Some students do prefer having a graphing notebook or one that has the grid paper, only because we will be doing some graphing, and sometimes having those grids just make that a little bit easier. But that's not necessary. It's a couple bucks extra, so it's up to you if you want to spend that money. Now, as far as calculators are concerned, students are going to need to have a TI-84 calculator. Now, there's TI-84 Plus, there's TI-84 Silver. It really doesn't matter which one it is. The only difference is I think some of those might have color screens or slightly different options. But as long as it's a version of the TI-84, they will do just fine. Now, I will have a link on my Schoology page for an online TI-84 calculator. There's also a Desmos graphing calculator that they could use. But I would still recommend having the TI-84 handheld calculator for a few reasons. One is this is a calculator that they'll be able to use all through the rest of their high school experience as well as college. They'll be able to use it on their ACT tests. They'll be able to use it on any AP tests. This is a calculator that is accepted in all of those exams. So if they have that tool and are familiar with it, it will serve them well. Like I said, there are online options, but I would recommend having it. The other thing that they would want to have is just a regular, just basic scientific calculator. Now, they probably already have a scientific calculator that looks like this one, and that would be just fine. Any scientific calculator will do. There are going to be times where we're going to be doing things where a graphing calculator might actually be more difficult or more time consuming, going back and forth between the different settings, and the scientific calculator makes it a little easier. There may also be times where there'll be tests or quizzes where we will not want them to use a graphing calculator and we'll only want them to use a scientific calculator. Now, these calculators range about to be around $14 new, but I've seen them at thrift stores for just a couple of bucks. Having 4 girls, I do a lot of thrift store shopping, so I've seen both of these calculators at thrift stores, but definitely a scientific calculator. Almost every time I go into a thrift store, I'm able to find one. And I've actually been starting to buy more to replace some of the ones I get lost here in my own classroom. So I would highly recommend having that as well. Now there's some optional items that students could also have, and one of those would be my notes printed out. So on Schoology, I will have everything students will need as far as videos. They'll be so separate from this will be the curriculum, the textbook, and their homework, and all of that would be through their online textbook there. But otherwise, as far as extra resources, all of those will be available online. The videos, the attendance-based assignments, however that's going to look, all of those will be available on Schoology. And like I said, one of those would be the notes. So if they want to, they could print those out. If they like doing it by hand and doing it separately, they can do that as well. It's completely up to them. Now, if they print out their notes, I would recommend then also getting a binder just to keep it all organized, so in that way they don't have this mess of notes between all their different classes. Now, how is grading going to look? Now, for this class, grading is just a traditional, we go by the traditional grading scale where 90% is the lowest A, 80% is the lowest B, and so on. Now, the reason why I have these two separate columns and the different shading here is because there is that opportunity to retake. But those retakes only apply in the high school. Our policy is that students can only retake summative assessments. And those are going to be your tests, your traditional tests. And so the way that this course is made up is 20% of their grade will be formative assessments, and that would be their quizzes and their homework assignments, which we'll talk about more in a little bit. And 80% of their grade is their summative, which would be their tests at the end of each chapter. And those are the only ones that they can retake. In addition to the homework assignments, like I said, we'll talk about those. But homework assignments, they can also retake those as many times as they want to get them right. But as far as the retake is concerned, students getting less than a 75% on their test can retake that test one time. Okay, so they can't retake it multiple times. They'll have one opportunity to retake that test. Now, there's some contingencies or some limitations to that. In order to retake a test, they must retake that test before the next test takes place. So at the end of the semester, they can't say, oh, can I go back and retake that Chapter 1 test? No, it's too late. Once we get to that Chapter 2 test, they have to have, if they wanted to retake that previous test, they would have to do it before the next chapter test takes place. And again, the only students that are eligible to retake are those getting less than a 75%. And when they retake it, the highest grade that they can get is a 75%. Now, let's say a student does really well and they get a 90% on the test. I think as a parent, that'd be something I would want to know. So when I put this into the grade book, what I do is in the comment section, I tell what the original score was and what the retake score was. So in that way, if you see that they retook it and got a 75%, you'll be able to look in the comment section and see what their actual score was on it so you can feel better about that grade. Now, in order to retake the test, the one thing that I ask of students is that they have to meet with me, whether that's during my in-person office hours or my online office hours, but they have to meet with me individually so we can go over their previous test and I can make sure that they're ready to retake it. So we can go over the ones that they got wrong. I can make sure that they're prepared, that they've figured out whatever mistakes that they made, so then that way I can feel confident that when they go to retake the test, they'll be successful and demonstrate a better mastery. Now, I know that a lot of you guys, if I was a parent, I'd want to know, okay, that's all great information, but what is it going to look like? If my child's hybrid, if my child's doing the online, the AVA, what's class going to look like? Now, I'm going to do my best to answer those questions now, but like I said earlier, you have to remember this might change slightly. Right now, this is what I've landed on as far as trying to figure out if I was a parent of a hybrid student, I looked at this as, okay, what would I want for my child? If I was a parent of an AVA student, I looked at this as what would I want for my child to have the richest, the best experience online or in person. But I also had to look at this as being a teacher and as a father and as a husband of how to manage my own stress and workload so I'm not doing too much and it affects my family as well. So please understand that I'm doing the best that I can. I'm trying to provide the most authentic, rich experience that your student can have in my classroom or online. So, Students will this is what I'm going to end up doing is what's called a flipped model. So students are always going to watch videos for each lesson at home for their homework. Okay, so that is what all students will be doing on their own separate time in the evening or whenever that might be. Their assignment is going to be to watch the video for the next lesson. Now, in class, on Mondays and Tuesdays, their class time, remember we're going to have, so students are split between Group A and Group B. So Group A being the A through K students, Group B being the L through Z students. So on Monday and Tuesday, I'm going to see those Group A students face to face. Now the largest class that I currently have is about, I think, 15 students that would be face to face on those days. And so those students will be separated. I'll show you in a picture how my room will look so you can feel safe about sending your child to school. But those students will be getting the personalized attention of me being present face-to-face and be able to answer questions. So what we'll probably do is I'll start out the class with a warm-up activity just to review that previous night's video that they should have watched and that they should have already taken notes on. So we're going to do a warm-up activity just to practice that kind of the main skill from that lesson. And then the rest of class time will be for students to work on the homework assignment. And I'll also probably, after that warm-up activity, I'll probably also take questions from that video. If there's any questions on any of the examples, and we'll go over that. We'll discuss that in class. And then, like I said, the rest of class time, students will be right there in my presence working on their homework assignment. So if they do have questions, I'll be there and I can answer it. Now, how will that look for hybrid students and for students that are working online, the AVA students? Students that are in hybrid, I am going to require them to still show up and be there for that class period. So that will be their attendance-based assignment. They will show up. They will be able to partake then online with the warm-up activity. I'll have that on my screen, so they'll be able to follow along and do that and be able to ask questions online through the chat portion of Google Meet. We've all been using that. I'm sure you've used that as well, even with family, and are familiar with that chat option. So students will be able to type in if they have a question on that or if they need some explanation. And then students that are hybrid will also then be working on their assignment during that time. And so as I'm moving around the room, I'll have on my screen, projected on my screen, the comment section. So if students have a question, they can post that. Now I would still recommend students, they're working online, they also have other students that are also working online. They don't have to social distance. They can work together. So they'll have that opportunity to answer each other's questions even while working online. So if I'm working individually with a student or a couple students in person, those students can work together and help each other out because we're all going to have students. We're going to have students at different levels. Some of them will be able to answer and support each other. So there'll be that option. But like I said, at the last 15 minutes of class, my goal is to be able to come back to my computer and address those questions that students have posted that are hybrid students if I haven't had a chance during class time where I've been working individually with the students that are present. Now, AVA students. AVA students, when they signed up for this to do the online portion, they might have thought that, well, then that means that I can do school on my own time. That obviously has changed since the start and since students have signed up. So I am requesting, not requiring, but I'm requesting those students to show up for class as well. And then they can get those questions and have the same experience as everyone else. That is my request. If they don't show up for class, though, I am going to have them submit work and submit things individually so I can see that they've done something for that day. So that's Mondays and Tuesdays. Wednesdays. Wednesdays, everybody's online. Now, Wednesdays are going to be the days that we're going to have quizzes. Okay, so every week we're going to have 2 lessons because the way that this curriculum works is it takes about 2 days to go through one lesson. So Monday and Tuesday we'll be going through one lesson. Thursday and Friday we'll be going through a different lesson. So the following Wednesday we'll be taking a quiz on the previous day's assignments. So what that's going to allow students is that's going to allow students the opportunity to have extra practice. They're going to have the weekend. They're going to have the opportunity to get support from me during office hours and class time to be able to get those questions answered. And then that following Wednesday will be their opportunity to demonstrate how well they've mastered and how they're doing with that material. And that will be a quiz. And I'll be taking 2 quizzes. I'll talk more about that here in a little bit. But also on that Wednesday is when all their assignments are due. They should already have them done because they've been working on them in class. So that really shouldn't be a big issue. And then on that Wednesday, they'll be watching the video then for the next day's, for the Thursday's assignment. And again, all that will be very clear on Schoology as far as what they need to be doing each day. Then Thursday and Friday, it's going to flip. Okay, so those students that were in class Monday and Tuesday in the hybrid group would then be online Thursday and Friday. Those students that were online Monday and Tuesday then would be in class Thursday and Friday. AVA students, the same rules would apply for them as Monday and Tuesday, where if they want to show up, they can. And they get that, and they will have that opportunity to engage in the class and still be a part of something, and also be able to get questions answered. Now, as far as those assignments, let's go back to talking about those. So the assignments, the way they work, and students coming into this course should already have experienced this last year in their previous class. It's the same curriculum that we're using, Pearson. But the way that we're going to grade assignments is this. It's going to be on a rubric scale. So if a student finishes their assignment and they get between an 80 and 100%, they'll get a score of 5 for that assignment. If they got a 60 to 79%, they'll get a 4, and so on. Now, the nice thing about the curriculum that we use is students can retake a problem if they get it wrong to demonstrate that they understand it. So that way they can figure out their mistake and then go back and get it correct. And so there's really no excuse for students getting 100%. They have that opportunity on every single assignment. And again, these assignments, these grades will be going in as a formative grade, so part of that 20% of their course, of their overall grade. Now again, you might be wondering, well, what is this going to look like in the presence of the classroom? How can I make sure that I'm sending my child to school and they're going to be safe and they're going to be in an environment where they're going to be socially distanced? So I wanted to show you a picture of my room. So this is what my room looks like. Okay, now students will not be sitting, because you might be saying, that doesn't look like 6 feet. It's not 6 feet. But if you notice, there's stickers on each of the desks. So what I'm doing is on that first day, when students come to class, I'm going to tell them to sit. First period will sit in a blue desk. Second period will sit at a red desk. And so in that way, when I measured this, they are exactly, each student would be exactly 6 feet apart from each other, diagonally and horizontally and vertically. Any direction you could look at, they're all going to be at least 6 feet apart from each other, if not more. So you can feel safe about your students coming into class and not being too close to each other. And then that provides me the opportunity then to be able to clean the desks, wipe them down during class, in between classes. So in that way, when students are coming in, they're going to have a clean desk to work at. All right. That's it. I know that was a lot of information. Hopefully this answers the questions you have, but I just want you to know that even though this looks different from anything I've ever experienced, I'm still excited about this year and excited about the opportunities that I'll have with working with the smaller environments, with those hybrid students, and finding opportunities also to work with those online students as well. So good luck, and I look forward to meeting your students in the next couple of weeks.